In my previous life, right before I died, I saw my ex-husband, whom I had abandoned, become the richest man around. Meanwhile, I ended up destitute after eloping with an intellectual. Reborn, I clung desperately to my ex-husband, hoping to change my fate. Instead, I became infamous around town as a shrew. Just as I was plotting against my cousin who'd snatched my ex-husband, something flashed before my eyes. Catherine, why do you always want to lean on a man to live well? It's better to rely on yourself, this is the best era. I felt panic rise up. Rely on myself? A village woman who didn't even finish elementary school, what could I possibly do? A gentle voice reassured me. You lived to 40 last time, didn't you do a lot of things? You saw the changes in this era, the country taking off. It's the 80s, opportunities are everywhere, and you have us. Following their guidance, I left the small town and headed south, transforming from a difficult village woman to a successful businesswoman. But it wasn't just me who they helped. Catherine, what's your drama this time? Aren't you embarrassed enough? My mom's voice was a mix of urgency and anger. Villagers crowded by the creek for the spectacle, me, my recently divorced ex-husband Dave, and my cousin Ella. I shouted even louder, looking at the two drenched people. So that's why you agreed to the divorce, Dave. You're into my cousin, huh? You've always looked down on me for not being educated, you heartless man. Dave, with a stern face, gave his coat to Ella, ignoring my rants. The two, one tall and handsome, the other petite and lovely, looked perfectly matched and immensely irritating. In my previous life, Dave and I had filed for divorce just before he saved Ella from drowning. They hit it off and married shortly after. In our conservative rural area, this was scandalous gossip. But who can I blame but myself? I was the one who wanted to marry for wealth, leaving Dave for some man from the city who promised me the good life. Ella constantly whispered in my ear, mocking Dave's lack of ambition and my ignorance, until I divorced him. Who knew Ella would quickly step in, marrying Dave after smearing bad ideas in my head? It turns out Dave wasn't just going to guard the factory, he was the deputy manager of a bakery. Ella chose well and lived a good life with Dave, while I got scammed and dragged to the city, serving as a nanny for a few thankless years before being kicked out. With my reputation ruined, I couldn't return home. In the city, I spent half my life as a waitress, working myself to death, dying alone in a cheap rental. Only then did I realize it was all a setup. Dave had become the richest man, Ella a doted upon wife, and I, the blind fool, only saw the truth when it was too late. Who would have thought I'd get another chance, back at 23, right after divorcing Dave? This time, I vowed to hold on to Dave. Dave looked at me with irritation. Have you caused enough trouble? Voices of villagers gossiping pierced my ears, making my face flush with shame. If she wasn't so obsessed with divorcing Dave for that intellectual, how could she blame Dave now? Exactly, he was just helping Ella. Now Catherine makes it sound dirty. Trashy and annoying, ruining a good life just to mess around. After being divorced, who'd even consider marrying her? I looked at Dave pitifully. Dave, see, could we remarry? Dave frowned but didn't answer. Ella chimed in, sis, what do you take Dave for? You think someone like him will wait for you to decide whether you want him or not? As she spoke, Ella glanced shyly at Dave, making me furious. It was clear she always wanted him. Shameless. Before I could say anything else, Dave spoke. Catherine, there's no chance for us anymore, stop bothering me. Turning to Ella, he added, I'll take you home. Ella softly replied, thank you, Dave. Once the two were gone, the crowd dispersed, leaving me standing there, humiliated. My mom rushed over, ready to yank my ear. You're destroying our family's reputation. If you don't want to live, find a rope to hang yourself, so you don't ruin your sister's chances. I dodged her hand, more defiant. I'm not gonna die. I'll live to 100. You can go die. Mom, fuming, threatened to throw a shoe at my face, but I ran off. In the woods, away from everyone, I broke down crying. Screw Dave. He's no good, and neither is Ella. Catherine, stop crying. You've lived 2 lives, how do you still only see men? My tears hadn't dried, but I froze in confusion. What were these strange words? I may only have an elementary education, but I could read. Some words looked different, though, and I struggled to grasp them. Catherine, we're here to help you. Finally, I understood. I wasn't the lead in my life. I was a side character in a novel with Dave and Ella as the stars. Last time, blinded by greed, I ditched Dave for an intellectual and ultimately died miserably. When I tried to cling to Dave after being reborn, I only pushed him closer to Ella, watching them live the high life while I ended up marrying a widower with kids in disgrace. The people in the chat are readers of this novel who are frustrated with me like a teacher disappointed in a student. I perked up. So, can you guys help me reconcile with Dave? The chat paused for a moment, then the comments started flying. Reconcile? Why would you want to do that? Auntie, I don't want to call you auntie anymore. You're more childish than my cousin in grade school. Do you love Dave? Why do you feel the need to get back with him? I scoffed. Love? What's love? Is it more important than having enough to eat and staying warm? Back then, if Dave didn't even buy me new clothes, would I have eloped with that Harry? A woman marries for food and clothing, but after 2 years of marriage, he only sent me $5. The rest went to his stingy mom. The chat sounded thoughtful, so why not rely on yourself for a better life? I wiped my tears with a dirty sleeve, biting my lip. I've always been tough and sharp, but for the first time, I felt vulnerable. Me? I can't. I don't have an education. All I can do is farm work. How can I survive without a man? When I thought about how, in my past life, I couldn't find a job in the city because of my lack of education, and people looked down on me, I felt a bit down. I didn't expect the chat to get so fired up. Why can't you do it? You lived to 38 in your past life. Didn't you take care of yourself all those years? You went through a time of rapid national development. Didn't you learn anything? Sister Catherine, this is the best time. There's opportunity everywhere. Let's seize this chance and start a business together. Hang on, forget just talking about it. You need someone with experience, like me, a woman who built a company valued in the millions. I'm getting pumped. The thought of witnessing your transformation is so exciting. I sighed, looking at the rapid-fire chat messages. Start a business? I don't even have $20 to my name. But seeing this chat system in front of me, my curiosity started to overshadow my sadness. I chatted with them as I walked. It's 1983, and those sent to the countryside for re-education are starting to come back. In my past life, I heard Harry say that the big cities are bustling, full of factories, and if I'd gone with him, I could have had a job paying $150 a month. After they reinstated the college entrance exams, my cousin Ella took the test and got into New York City Normal University. Meanwhile, with only an elementary education, I couldn't see a way out. Back then, Dave was cold toward me. Under his mom's thumb, he only gave me $5 a month for living expenses, and he was away in the army most of the time. Desperate in this hopeless marriage, I finally decided to run away with Harry to New York City. When I got there, I discovered Harry had lied. His nice townhouse was actually his family crammed into a 270-square-foot room. I even had to sleep in the hallway. I regretted it then, but I had nowhere else to go. Clinging to Harry was all I could do. I thought that maybe marrying Harry meant at least getting factory work in the city. But as intellectuals returned, work became harder to find. Dave's family dangled employment over me, keeping me as their maid for 5 years before I couldn't stand it any longer. I often ran into Ella and Dave in the city. At first, Dave was biking with Ella, later, it was a motorcycle, then a car. I used to wonder, why Ella of all people? If it were someone else, maybe I wouldn't care. But why did it have to be Ella, the cousin I envied my whole life? The only thing I'd had over her was marrying Dave, a man the whole village said was a catch. In the end, Dave married Ella anyway. Maybe seeing my gloomy expression, the chat started talking about the US years later. I died in the winter of 1998. These people in the chat live in 2024. Reading about the powerful nation, the booming economy, and the good life years later made me envious. Despite some small hassles in their lives, each person seemed more capable than me. These feelings of envy and their encouragement to be self-reliant started planting a seed in my heart. I couldn't quite explain this restless feeling, but I knew my heart was racing. Until I got home and saw the mess of my ransacked room. My parents had 7 children in total, me being the eldest, with 4 younger brothers and 2 sisters. The house made of straw and mud had 4 rooms, 1 for my parents, 2 for my brothers, and 1 for my sisters. I used to share a room with my sisters, but after I married Dave, since he was in the army and I couldn't move with him, his mom didn't let me stay with them, so I ended up alone in the kitchen. The $200 Dave gave as a dowry let my dad build 2 more rooms for my brothers when it was time for them to get married. Seeing my scattered belongings, I rushed over and realized all my money was gone, along with the red ribbon I bought for my wedding. Rushing outside, I saw my second sister, Betty, flaunting my red ribbon. I threw myself at her, yanking at her hair to get it back. "Mom, Mom. Big sis is hitting me," Betty yelled, refusing to give up the ribbon, cursing at me, "You're divorced. What's wrong with me wearing your ribbon? Mom said I've got a blind date this afternoon." I sneered, "Dreaming of marriage already? You're obsessed. I'll teach you not to wear my ribbon." Our scuffle was quickly stopped by my parents. Mom hit me with a stick. "Catherine, why all this fuss every day? You've ruined your sister's prospects. It's just a ribbon. Let your sister wear it. Be generous as the elder sister." Betty smugly tied her hair, throwing me a sidelong glance. "Yeah, that." My fists were clenched so tight, my anger was about to burst out of my chest. I paused, staring straight at my mom. "Fine, I won't argue with her about this." "Mom, where's the money I had wrapped in my clothes?" My mom averted her eyes guiltily but then boldly said, "You think you live here for free all the time? Who stays at their mom's house like you after getting married? Consider that $18 your living expenses." Tears stung my eyes, and I said bitterly, "Wasn't my dowry enough for you? Have I ever worn new clothes since I was a child? I raised 6 siblings, did all the housework for years. Do I owe you?" I glanced at Betty with her fair skin. She's just 2 years younger than me, but she grew up here, never doing farm work. The 4 brothers are boys, and Mom coddled them, never letting them work. Why do even my 2 sisters live better than me? Am I just their oldest daughter or the family's drudge? Alright, if you can manage it, stay. If not, go wherever you want. My dad's voice was cold, forcing the end of this farce. He looked at me before entering the house. "Girl, go make lunch. Your siblings are coming home from school, don't let them go hungry." The yard emptied quickly, and I stood there alone. Not a soul stood by me, anger storming inside me. But there was nothing I could do. I had nowhere to go, nowhere to lean on. I thought Dave would save me from this pit, but he didn't love me enough to stand up to his mom. Harry, whom I thought would change my fate, was just a scam with Ella. A tear of frustration slipped from my eye. I lifted my head and wiped it away carelessly with my rough hand. I dove into the kitchen, lighting the fire to cook. The stream chat was dead silent. While cooking, I broke a weary smile. "What's up? Did you realize there's nothing I can do anymore? Start a business? Leaving this house meant starving to death. I don't know why fate gave me a second shot. Was my life not miserable enough?" Frustrated, I cooked quickly, venting my pain through words. I figured my bitter words would drive the chat away, but after a while, they spoke. "Catherine, sis, destiny gave you another chance to meet us. Sis, sorry for my harsh words earlier. If it were me, I might have chosen worse. Catherine, let's go. Leave this home. Yeah. Catherine, you've got us. We're your wisdom squad. I stayed silent. 2 lives, and I always picked wrong. I was tired. Lunch was a plate of wild greens, cabbage, and potatoes steamed with rice to fill us up. There were also 4 boiled eggs. No matter how those eggs were divided, there wouldn't be any for me. The dining table was small, couldn't fit everyone, so I ate squatting in the kitchen. Catherine, come clear the table. My mom called, and I went to clear the table so my siblings could do homework. I've resisted before. Once, I stubbornly refused. Staring at my family at the table, I shouted, "Why am I the only one working? Are the others dead?" The next second, my dad slapped me. "Look, if you don't work, don't eat tomorrow." Tears in my eyes, my face swollen, I cleared the table. No one said a word for me. I had long felt out of place. But later, when I ended up washing dishes in NYC, I was grateful for these experiences. They made me fast and efficient, and the restaurant owner gave me 3 meals because of it. Silently, I went in and collected the dishes. As I turned, Ben stood outside, watching me. He was the most straightforward of my siblings. But since going to school, he's had his own thoughts, and we didn't talk much. Ben looked at me, guilt in his eyes. "Sis." I replied evenly, "Yeah." Ben couldn't meet my eyes, murmuring, "Ella said you wanted to go with Harry, so I..." Ben shoved $10 into my hand. "Take this money." Holding the 10, I said nothing. In our past lives, Ella gave me $10 to elope with Harry. This life, I had been so focused on Dave after his return from the army, I scarcely thought of Harry. Judging by the days, he should be heading back to the city. Ella's evidently paying to keep me away from Dave. Suspicious, I wondered if Ella and Dave knew each other before our wedding. I asked Ben, probing, "Where'd you get the money?" "Our mom kept the money tight. There's no way she'd let Ben have so much." Ben blushed. "I borrowed it from Ella. She said you lacked money to stay with Harry." I pressed, "She say anything else?" Ben lowered his head. "She said Harry's family's well off. Going with him would be better than staying." Knowing Ben, easily tricked by Ella's scheming, I twisted his ear. "Believe everything you hear?" Ben stood still, quietly taking it. I've been his pillar since I learned to walk. Though we grew apart, I was glad he cared for me, even a bit. Still, I scolded him, "Don't repay this, got it?" Ben opened and closed his mouth, hesitant about owing money. Frustrated, I threatened, "Stay out of this. If you pay Ella a cent, I'll shave you." Though knowing it was an empty threat, he nodded. Before turning back, he hesitated. "Sis, are you really leaving?" I said nothing. Yes, I'd leave. I had to. Catherine. Staying in Little River Village means your future is marrying a widower with kids. You want a better life, right? You gotta move out to have a future. The comments on the screen earnestly advised me. I looked up at Ben and nodded slightly. I have to go, only by leaving can I save myself. I tried 3 times to change my life by relying on men, but that turned out to be hopeless. Maybe this time, I'll change my life by relying on myself, like the comments said. Ben seemed relieved, a hint of apology flashed in his eyes as he turned and left. Among my family, only Ben seemed to have a conscience. Since I was little, I knew that Ella and I had different fates. Ella is my uncle's daughter. He has just her and 2 sons. With fewer kids, they pampered her. She got whatever she wanted, even if her grades were bad. But my dad? Not so much talent, thought the more kids the better, and had 7 of us. I was stopped from middle school because no one could take care of the younger ones, and school cost money. He thought it was a waste to spend on a girl like me and kept the money for my brother's college. But none of my 4 brothers ever amounted to anything, so he sent my 2 sisters to school. I, however, wasn't in school and was stuck doing farm work every day. Every time I saw Ella, I envied her. If only I was born to her dad, I'd be in school. I'd go to college. Well, no chance now. I packed up, took the $10 Ben gave me, and secretly got a train ticket to New York City. The ticket alone cost me $60, and it pained me a lot. On a windy, dark night, I left Little River Village wearing my patched-up clothes. Walked all night to reach the train station. Unexpectedly, I ran into Dave and Ella on the train. Their faces turned green when they saw me. In the cramped train, the three of us stared at each other. Finally, Ella sneered, "Catherine, have you no shame?" I stood tall, proud as the rooster I used to have. I may have given up Dave, but I won't lower my head. Ella, you're a college student. Yet, you want a divorced man. I'm blunt and careless with my words, not afraid of backlash, and I knew Ella couldn't out-argue me. In my last life, I was stupid enough to fall for Ella's tricks. Not this time. Ella fought back. If you didn't fool around, would Dave have divorced you? The whole carriage was eagerly watching us. Dave, a quiet yet macho guy, felt uneasy being the gossip topic. I spat, "You act like Dave is irreplaceable. When I married him, you kept trashing him in my ear. Now that I've left him, you're clinging on to him. Stop pretending. Just say you want to steal my man." Squeezing through the crowded train with the strength I gained from farm work, I made space for myself, hands on hips, readying my voice. The comments watched in awe as I continued without pausing to breathe. Wow, I'm stunned. Does Catherine even need saving from us? You don't get it. I love how badass Catherine is, it's so satisfying to watch. If you're not tough as a woman, you'll get bullied. Puffed with pride from all the praise, I lashed one last blow at their pale faces. Dave isn't worth it. Married and wouldn't even let me live in his house. Just a mama's boy. You think you'll have a good life with him, Ella? The carriage became silent. Typically noisy, it was unusually quiet, almost applauding me. I wiggled out of the crowd and headed to the next carriage, finally sober after my rant. If I got a second chance, why cling on to Dave? A mama's boy husband wasn't good to me. Why would he be good to Ella? With good morals and character, a guy is good to his wife, no matter who she is. Seeing I'd come to my senses, the commenters cheered for me. Catherine, you finally figured it out. Everyone gets what's coming to them eventually. Let's just live our lives well. The train to your new life has started, Catherine. Let's get ready. A last-minute comment said, Catherine, head for the restroom quick. Pulling a stunt like that, the attendants know who you are now. How can we dodge the fare? Feeling embarrassed, I covered my face and headed for the restroom. When the train reached New York City, I didn't get off. I wasn't planning on patching things up with Dave, nor getting revenge on Harry, who was no longer in my life. I planned to start my own business. The screen comments mentioned that while NYC is prospering now, it'll start to decline in a decade or so, with southern cities in the US blooming with reforms. Full of spirit, I hid in the train bathroom for 8 hours. Then with a pungent odor, I sneaked into the connection between carriages, riding for free all the way to Los Angeles. No choice, a ticket to LA costs a hefty amount. All I had left after the ticket was 24 cents and a few big buns. Even the pickpockets on the train felt sorry for me and slipped an egg into my bag. I quickly devoured it. After 32 hours, the train stopped in Los Angeles. With just a backpack, the worn, ill-fitting cloth shoes I'd been wearing for years, and a stench hanging around me, I stood in Los Angeles, the starting point of reform and opening up. This place is way busier than New York City. People everywhere are wearing bright clothes, guys and girls both look stylish and sharp. I had a moment where I just wanted to shrink away. Is this really the place I'm supposed to be? I started to have second thoughts, but the folks in the comments section look way more excited than me. Less worldly too. Oh my God. Is this Los Angeles in 1983? Look over there, people are actually taking photos. There's a photo booth right at the train station entrance. Oh man, they know how to do business. Just one glance and 100 ways to make money flash through my mind. Catherine. We're definitely in the right place. From now on, we're gonna ride the wave and make at least $1 million. No, no, no. $1 billion. I shivered at the thought. $2.40 in my pocket, that's enough to keep my family going for a year back home. $1 million sounds nuts. I quickly blurted out, I'd be happy just making 10 grand. Passers-by looked at me like I was totally nuts. They probably thought I didn't seem like someone who could make money. I didn't care and grabbed my stuff to move on. Ladies, where do I go to make money now? The comments went silent because, with only $2.40 in my pocket, I couldn't do much. I didn't even have enough for a motel. How about starting with packed lunches? Or maybe sell some sunflower seeds. I'm thinking we'll go buy clothes wholesale, then sell them back in New York City. But guys, we don't have any startup cash. I snorted. Already figured they weren't much help. Realizing I was frustrated, the comments hurried to say, give us a minute. I've read a ton of books about this era. Gotta be some useful info there. Hold tight, I'm going digging. What's that saying? Dying before the journey even begins? I wandered around with my stuff, giving the street a good look. Finally, I made a decision. Spotted the busiest little restaurant. I went in, plopped my bag down, and asked the overworked lady in charge, need a hand, ma'am? She seemed like a kind woman in her 40s, efficient and all. She hesitated when she heard my offer. I tied my hair up neatly, not a strand out of place, and smiled, I've waited tables before. Just try me out. If I do okay, just feed me a meal. 3 beef noodles here. A customer shouted, waving. The restaurant was packed, and she was struggling on her own. She quickly said, all right, I'll give you a shot. But no mistakes. I maneuvered through the crowd like a pro, serving and remembering orders without a hitch. Good thing I had a little skill under my belt. Otherwise, if I'd just listened to those commenters, I might have starved my first day in LA. By 4 in the afternoon, the crowd began to thin out. Apologetic comments came in, sorry, Catherine, we didn't think it through. Good thing Catherine's amazing. I told you Catherine can do anything. I teased back, you little flatterers, as if I could be mad. I've lived 2 lives now, I should know better. I figured I'd at least be better off waitressing here in LA than in my little village. At least here, I work and get paid. At home, work means getting scolded. I made this choice, standing by it. I'm Catherine, honest and accountable. I can swallow my pride to get Dave back, so why not hustle for a meal in LA? So here I was, waitressing, keeping my head above water, managing to scrape together some cash, though it's still not enough for much. As I considered moving on to a bigger restaurant, maybe climbing my way to manager, something changed in the comment colors. Now there were black font comments mixed in. Hey, Catherine. We're the black font comments, level 2. Curious, I asked, your comments too? What's the difference? A black font commenter explained plainly, the red fonts are elementary school level. We're college level. In short, we'll help with the business stuff from now on. Those red fonts can keep you company and chat. I laughed, the way they put it made the red fonts seem like little pets. The red fonts were silent for a bit, then typed, meow, meow, meow. Woof, 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 woof. Catherine, don't reject us. Grinning, I said, don't worry, I won't. When you've got hope, a lot of life's bitterness just melts away. I can hardly remember the quirky mess I was back in my village. Catherine, what's your strong suit? The comments asked. I thought for a moment and said, I'm good at waitressing. It's what I know. Catherine. Not that. We can't be waitressing forever. We're aiming for big bucks. I thought more. I know hard work. I can endure a lot. Seeing I was stumped, the comments gave up. Right now it's the 80s. Even selling sunflower seeds can make you rich in LA. We'll figure it out. Looking at their suggested industries, I started thinking more seriously. First up was one everyone in 2024 could relate to: real estate. The comments said, this is the population boom, and the more developed the area, the more expensive properties will get. I could flip land and start a real estate company. As they said this, I was squatting and eating noodles, totally lost. Where the heck do I buy land? Comments sighed, forget it, Catherine. You have no connections. Even if we know LA's future urban plans, this isn't something you can pull off. You'd get into trouble instead. Second suggestion: selling clothes. These days, clothing styles in the South are trendy and cheap. You can make a ton of money flipping these clothes up north. Once you've saved enough, you can start your own factory and launch your own brand. I quickly raised my hand. I know how to work a sewing machine. Is it to work in a clothing factory? In my past life, I heard clothing factories in NYC had great benefits. Harry's sister used to take home scraps that I would use to make clothes and quilts. I never imagined that my past life's hardships would teach me so many survival skills. No, Catherine, if we do this, we're going big. No working for someone else. I pointed out the obvious: how do you go big without money? I don't even have cash to get inventory. After a long debate, the consensus was, start with lunch boxes. It doesn't need much cash. I have enough saved up to buy ingredients for one day. Then, with the profits, buy for the next day, and so on, compounding the earnings. Build up capital, open a restaurant, grow a customer base, and maybe open a chain. If things go well, we could even start a food factory. But no matter what we plan for the future, I can't just fantasize. Starting a business isn't a one and done deal. I need to do market research and analyze sales up front. So, with help from the chat, I sold lunch boxes for about 6 months. I rented a place with a yard. Woke up at 3 in the morning to make the meals. By 6, I was selling them outside factories and construction sites. The prices were fair, and the food was good, so business was decent. After half a year, I ended up quite the earner. But one night, heading home, some guys from a construction site knocked me down and demanded my money. Shaking, I clung to my tricycle and gave them all I had. Lucky for me, they just wanted the cash and didn't hurt me. I promised I wouldn't report them, and they left with the money. Catherine, oh no, are you okay? A single woman doing business alone can be so dangerous. Catherine, are you sure we shouldn't contact the police? After they dragged me off my tricycle, I was a mess, even had some scratches on my face. But my eyes were full of defiance. Ugh, these guys have hands and feet but go after a woman's money. If I don't see them caught, I shouldn't call myself Catherine. I limped to the police station to report the theft. Those men took $821. In 1980s LA, not a small amount. Using tips from the chat, I reported the local casinos and salons they mentioned. Those guys either gamble or pay for women. After that, I sold my tricycle, canceled the lease, and put all my money into a savings account. I planned to quit the lunchbox gig. My fixed location and bustling business might attract more thieves. Just like when I came, I left the south side with a single bag. Before leaving, I got a call from the police station. They'd caught the guys who mugged me and asked about the seized money. I carefully said, please donate it. Out in the world, it's best not to stir up trouble. The day after I canceled my lease, a message popped up. Do you know what your advantage is? Advantage? Hesitantly, I said, because I have all of you. For once, my vulnerability made the chat emotional. Wow, Catherine's words brought me to tears. I thought Catherine, being so tough, wouldn't lean on us. But it's true, I tend to be cautious. Even deciding not to sell lunch boxes, I didn't immediately follow their advice to sell clothes. I'm worried that if the business expands too much and the messages stop one day, can I keep going alone? No, your advantage is the information gap. You have us with info ahead by 40 years. Why not trust us a bit more? I went silent for a moment. It hit me. Each time the chat proposed plans, I default to what I could tackle solo without help. Guess I've become a bit of a nervous wreck. I got a serious look. Sorry for that, I do have trust issues. If you weren't genuinely looking out for me, why spend so much time here? It's just. I left part unsaid. Just that I've been left behind too often, even to my parents, I was invisible. I always felt, as messed up as I was, why would anyone help me that much? No, Catherine, we learned a bunch from you too. Exactly, you never give up, no matter how tough things get. That's impressive. And education? Once you hit the big bucks, we'll help you study and get into a top school. I shook my head. So many years since I studied. I'll aim for any average school as long as I'm not a joke. In those casual chats, I started trusting their guidance completely. I visited 7 clothing factories in LA, buying up other people's leftovers. Then set off on my train journey peddling clothes. Selling clothes is no easy job. On the train, there are lots of pickpockets. Even with a bunch of sisters from the comments section watching out for me, I didn't dare sleep. I held tightly onto the clothes I bought with my entire savings. When we reached a city a bit further north, I got off, rented a tricycle, and sold clothes in crowded places. It only took a few days to go from stuttering through my sales pitch to speaking smoothly, full of confidence and reliability, selling each outfit. Back in New York City, I counted my earnings. I made a neat $30,000 profit on this trip. I kept traveling back and forth between the north and south, accumulating funds. Eventually, I acquired a clothing factory in Los Angeles and started a clothing company. When it came time to choose a brand name, I asked the comments section, what do you think we should call it? Surprisingly, they all agreed, let's call it Snowflake Clothing. I shook my head, nah, that's too casual. I'm named Catherine because on the day I was born, it snowed heavily in New York City. I was born when snowflakes were falling beautifully. The comments section got creative, then let's call it, Snowflakes Falling, Catherine. You see? Following their suggestion, I noticed the comments floating down around me, like snowflakes falling. Catherine, don't we look like falling snowflakes when we surround you like this? I didn't say anything, but my eyes softened a bit. Snowflakes Falling quickly gained a foothold in LA. The sisters in the comments, with their modern insights, helped me design clothes that were trendy and popular. Because of this, they helped me get into a fashion design school in LA. After graduation, I went to Shanghai with the comments to learn how to make skirts. I had a workshop filled with mannequins, each dressed in a one-of-a-kind skirts that I made by hand. I created these favorite clothes for the sisters in the comments. The comments would say, Catherine, I love skirts too. It's a shame they cost thousands now, I can't afford one. So, when I faced setbacks in my career, I liked to be alone in the workshop, chatting with the girls in the comments while making them skirts. 10 years flew by, and I transformed from that girl from a little river village to a businesswoman in LA. My clothing stores began in LA and spread across the South. My career sharpened my eyes with wisdom and determination, and the struggle faded from my face. I became efficient and decisive without even realizing when it started. I step off the train with my suitcase, breathe out softly looking at New York City's landmarks. This time I'm back, not for revenge on anyone, but for the countless laid-off workers in NYC. I remember when I headed south on a train, passing my beloved New York City, without a moment's hesitation. Commenters said, NYC went from glory to decline in just 20 years. I grew up during NYC's golden age. Back then, trains would leave NYC loaded with resources heading south, boosting America's rise. But with the impact of a market economy, it's like the city had its backbone broken, never straightening up for decades. Catherine, my dad's from NYC too. When I was born, he'd just lost his job. I heard from my mom, our family was so broke we couldn't even afford food. Dad clung to a cargo train to go south and make money. My uncle's from NYC too. I heard back then, a lot of NYC college grads were studying computer science but couldn't find work in the city. He graduated from NYC's Industrial University, and by 40, was running a print shop, barely making $2,000 or $3,000 a month. Meanwhile, his classmates who went south to work in e-commerce were CEO. I quietly listened to the comments about NYC's decline. I'd planned to never return. Maybe because people change with time, I felt a twinge of softness from my upbringing in the Little River Village and my time spent as a waitress in NYC. Until one comment hit me, a girl said, "Catherine, after my dad was laid off, he couldn't make ends meet and ended his life on the tracks. I grew up an orphan. I didn't go to school, but when the comments were teaching you, I learned too. Hee, I've now passed my adult education exams. This place feels great. I want to stay with you forever, Auntie." No one else commented for a while, and that one stayed on screen. We all knew the truth, the comments can't be with me forever. What this girl hoped for would slip away like early spring Catherine, fleeting. So, I boarded the train to NYC. I don't know who this girl's father is. Limits within the system prevent us from knowing each other's real-life situations. But if I could reverse NYC's decline, maybe she wouldn't be an orphan. I brought nearly all my earnings from LA, prepared for a big endeavor in NYC. The city's factories were already showing signs of decline. I immediately contacted the local government to acquire a few state-run clothing factories. After a discussion with the comments, we decided to set up the Snowflakes Falling Clothing base in NYC. Though transportation costs would rise, NYC was home to skilled machinery production in heavy industry, making it a win-win. With government support, Snowflakes Falling factories sprouted like mushrooms in NYC. But our plan with the comments wasn't quite so simple. We gathered stories from the girls in the comments about everything that happened in NYC during the 80s and 90s. I decided to dive into the e-commerce business in New York City. New York Tech has a bunch of computer science grads ready to join the scene. The city's perfect for e-commerce growth. The only snag could be transportation, but the government's already taken care of that. Back in the day, trains in NYC carried premium steel and rich harvests. Before the city started its decline and trains came to a halt, Snowflake stepped in, taking over that responsibility effortlessly. 1995 was a pivotal year for NYC. It shifted from being a heavy industrial hub to a lighter one. Snowflakes brought a touch of LA's glamour to the city. Now, NYC's most bustling buildings house fashion stores filled with clothes from the Snowflakes factory. I went from being an LA CEO to running the show here in New York City. I hadn't seen Ella and Dave for 15 years. Investors from LA came over, and Snowflake's success in NYC attracted Southern companies eager to replicate our prosperity here. One of these investors, Mr. Mark, was keen on getting into the fur business. Fur's part of fashion, after all. With NYC factories looking to pivot, I wanted to connect Mr. Mark with the local government, so I threw a party. Ella and Dave showed up representing their private business. I wore a skirts, inspired by suggestions on my social feed. Ella, wearing Snowflake's tailored clothes, clung to Dave's arm, eyeing me with a mix of surprise and uncertainty. She hesitantly asked, "Catherine?" I noticed her aging face, eyes tired from life's burdens. Her clothes were clearly not custom-made, just second-hand purchases. I finally let go of the stuff that had been bugging me for years. Before I could respond, Mr. Mark frowned at them. "This is CEO Catherine. Are there really New Yorkers who don't recognize her?" That remark made Ella and Dave look uncomfortable. Dave, as usual, played the invisible man role. Back in his day, he'd wait for his mom to secure his interests, reaping all the benefits. And now, nothing's changed. Holding his glass, he chuckled, just a woman's perspective. Ella's face showed her unease, but she didn't dare challenge Dave's words. She's aged, and with Dave's affairs with college girls, she's worried her position's at risk. I sighed a bit, realizing her life wasn't as happy as I once thought. My social feed blew up. Wow, after all these years, is this really not a story of business triumph, but a personal victory? Catherine, we were right. You can't rely on others. It's better to be your own boss. I calmly ignored Dave's remark. Mr. Mark also wasn't keen on engaging with Dave. After all, I was the main attraction at the party. Yet, Dave wasn't ready to give up. He attempted another approach. Catherine, how have you been since we divorced? That statement was a bombshell, drawing everyone's attention. People didn't expect the NYC CEO to be this guy's ex-wife. Smiling wryly, I didn't give Dave any room. 20 years post-divorce, and now you ask. Why the sudden interest? After years in business, I'm still that same Catherine deep down. Seriously, I didn't let Ben repay that $10 Ella gave him. And now they expect to climb over me? Get lost. I clinked glasses with Mr. Mark, who skillfully lowered his glass with a grin. Addressing the crowd, I announced, I'm Catherine, and I'm the kind of person who doesn't forgive easily. From now on, showing respect to Dave means disrespecting me. Looking at Dave, I added, come on, once two people divorce, there's bound to be bad blood, right? Dave was finally unsettled, his eyes showing regret, perhaps thinking back to when he allowed Ella's brother Harry to lure me into eloping. Initially, Dave fancied Ella. But when Ella got into college, my uncle didn't approve of Dave, so he settled for me instead. Yet, he never let it go, allowing his mom to torment me. When Ella confessed her feelings, they conspired against me, kicking me out and staging my elopement with Harry to keep appearances. They played the victims, while I ended up with nothing. But I wasn't completely innocent. If I hadn't been so materialistic back then, I wouldn't have fallen for it. Now I know, success writes history. As a CEO, whatever I say goes. Ella awkwardly commented, sis, who would have thought you'd achieve so much with just a grade school education? I felt sorry for Ella. She sought self-worth by putting me down. Without responding, I simply patted her shoulder. Next time, avoid those second-hand clothes. Give your measurements to my assistant, I'll have some dresses made for you. With Mr. Mark by my side, I walked past them, no longer giving them any importance. Wanting to remarry Dave and living Ella's life used to be my obsession. But now, I can finally let it go. The life I thought I lost wasn't as rosy as I used to obsess over. Seeing Ella, it felt like the folks from my past were back. My parents, with my 6 siblings, camped outside Snowflake's office, hoping to gain something from me. They even formed a human wall, stopping my car. My mom approached with a cheesy smile. Is that my oldest daughter? Ella said you're a big shot now. I looked at Betty, her eyes greedy, and the younger siblings behind her getting restless. I chuckled softly and asked, what's up? My mom and dad, pulling the kids along, said, you're the big sister. Shouldn't you find work for your brothers? Their tone was full of entitlement. We raised you, can't you take care of us in our old age? I replied, so should I give them my company and let you live in my house? As I spoke, I saw their eyes light up with greed. Only Ben shouted angrily, Mom, what are you doing? Dad kicked him angrily, are you an idiot? Your sister's successful now. She should help her siblings. I'd heard that line so many times. My ears had gone numb from it. That saying, as the big sister, you should, turned me into a workhorse for the family for the first 20 years of my life. In my past life, until my death, no one in the family cared for me one bit. I smirked coldly, drive. The driver hesitated. The family was surrounding the car. I reached out from the car window, pulled Betty's hair, and yanked off her hair accessory. Betty, furious, yelled, "What's wrong with you? You're rich now, why are you pulling at my hair accessory?" Holding the accessory, I recalled the day, years ago, when Betty stole my only hair ornament. An eye for an eye seems fair to me. I said coolly, "Step on it. If anyone gets hurt, it's my responsibility." The driver hesitantly hit the gas, and with the family yelling, we drove off. Did they think that was the end? Growing up, apart from being taken advantage of at home, Betty never let herself get the short end of the stick. Wearing inexpensive clothes, with nothing on me, I returned to the family empty-handed. Dangling my company in front of them, running my siblings like dogs. Even my parents had to cook and wash dishes. Anyone who refused would get a cold sneer from me, "Don't want money?" Under the lure of money, even Betty would smile every night as she poured water for me to wash my feet. Finally, the frustration in my heart was lifted. I left myself a mere $10,000 and gave Ben $100,000, cutting all ties with the family. One night, I left the house, and this time, I wasn't coming back. Sitting in the studio, I realized I was truly alone. But I felt calm and secure because, with my foundation, I had the strongest armor. I looked at the scrolling comments around me, my eyes gentle, "Thank you. You always say this is the best era." Yet I've always felt that, for me, the best part of this era is meeting you all. Later, New York City, which the comments predicted would decline, took a turn and prospered for a long time. The predicted wave of layoffs never happened. The arrival of the comments not only changed my life but also affected many others. Even at the end of my life, I never forgot how the comments reached out to me during my hardest and most embarrassing times. Before the comments disappeared, I set up 3 special foundations to help girls out of school from poor areas, unemployed women, and patients with serious illnesses. I wanted to be the helping hand that guided those girls out of trouble. Another year passed. As I watched the snowfall, I felt a bit lonely. I remembered that year, when I established Snowflakes, and the warmth of the comments falling on me like the snow. "Ladies, I kind of miss you.